All right. Let's dive into a work style
Yeah.
that's well, it's really taking the world by storm.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine working from like a beach in Bali
Oh,
one
wow.
day and then the next year in a cafe in Lisbon.
Right.
That's the allure of the digital nomad life.
It is.
And you know what? It's not just a fantasy anymore.
It's not. No.
It's really changing how we all think about work.
Yeah.
It's a movement we just can't ignore.
Definitely.
So today, we're going to explore this world
Yeah.
of remote work and this whole digital nomad phenomenon.
That's right.
Talk about the good and the bad
Uh-huh.
and what the future of work might look like for all of us.
That's a big question.
Is this the future for you?
Let's find out.
Let's find out.
One thing that's really interesting is how the pandemic just like supercharged this whole remote work thing.
Sure.
It started as like a necessity for a lot of people, but
Yeah.
it's become a preferred way of life for so many.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
And it's fascinating to me
Yeah.
how differently employers and employees
Right.
view productivity when it comes to remote work.
Yeah.
I was reading about this study from Future Forum,
Hmm.
and it said that employees who have flexibility in their schedules
Right.
report being almost 30% more productive
Wow.
than those who don't.
That's a big number.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then you have studies like that one from Microsoft
Yeah.
where something like, what was it, like 85% of leaders said they struggle to trust that their employees are being productive
Really?
when they're not in the office.
It's like a trust issue.
I think it is.
A seeing is believing thing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how do you bridge that gap?
Well, I think some companies are figuring out how to manage differently.
Okay.
Ascension Group is a good example. They shifted their focus from
Yeah.
watching what their employees are doing every minute to actually,
Yeah.
managing processes and leading people. They trust their employees to get the work done,
Yeah.
regardless of where they're doing it from.
That is huge.
It is. So they really zero in on the quality of the work,
Mm-hmm.
making the clients happy, meeting deadlines
Right.
instead of just like
Yeah.
counting the hours that someone's at a desk.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Focus on the results, not just where the work happens.
that's it.
Okay, so it seems like remote work is here to stay.
Definitely.
But what about this digital nomad thing?
Right?
Is that just a trendy way to say remote worker,
Uh-huh.
or is it something different?
Well, I mean, basically a digital nomad is a remote worker.
Okay.
But they take that whole work from anywhere
Yeah.
concept
Yeah.
to the next level.
Okay.
So they use technology to work while they're traveling and exploring the world.
Got it.
Yeah. It's like,
So it's remote work, but with like a major travel upgrade.
I think so.
That sounds pretty amazing. Honestly, so is this lifestyle actually becoming more popular?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, the numbers they're pretty eye-opening.
Okay.
So like between 2022 and 2024,
Mhm.
the number of digital nomads is expected to grow by 2%.
Okay.
Which maybe doesn't sound like a lot,
Right.
but when you consider that the number of digital nomads jumped like a whopping 131%
Whoa.
between 2019 and 2022.
Wow. It's a huge increase.
Yeah.
Who's driving this whole digital nomad boom?
Millennials are definitely leading the charge,
Mm.
but Gen X is not that far behind.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like younger generations are really embracing this way of life.
And it's not hard to see why.
No, not at all.
I mean, the freedom and flexibility are super appealing.
Uh-huh.
Working from anywhere, setting your own hours,
Right.
prioritizing your personal life.
It's a big one.
Who wouldn't want that?
Exactly.
Plus, there's the potential to live more affordably,
Oh, yeah.
depending on where you choose to base yourself.
Absolutely.
Why pay a fortune to live in a big city
Right.
when you can, work from a cool spot in Portugal
Right.
or like a tropical island in Thailand?
Yeah. It's very tempting.
Okay, you're painting a pretty tempting picture here.
I know. But let's be real.
Yeah.
There are definitely some things to consider,
Cool.
some challenges that come with this lifestyle.
Right. It can't all be sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
What are some of the things?
Well, I mean, for one, finding reliable internet access can be a real struggle,
Okay.
especially in more remote areas.
Right.
Time zone differences can make communication and teamwork a little tricky too.
I bet.
And then there's the potential for loneliness and isolation.
Oh, that's a good point.
It can be hard to build a strong community
Yeah.
when you're constantly on the move.
That's something people forget about.
Definitely.
That social aspect.
Yeah.
It's so important to stay connected and and build relationships,
Yeah, absolutely.
no matter where you're working from.
No matter where you are.
Yeah. And then there's all the practical things like visas, figuring out healthcare while you're traveling, and managing your finances across different countries.
Yeah. A lot to think about.
It's a lot.
All things that take careful planning and research.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about the employer's perspective.
Yeah.
How are companies reacting to this whole digital nomad thing?
Yeah, it really depends on the company.
Okay.
Some companies, like Kraken,
Okay.
they're a Bitcoin trading platform. They see remote work as a major asset.
Interesting.
Yeah, they can recruit the best people from all over the world
Right.
without being limited by location.
Makes sense.
It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
They get this amazing talent,
Uh-huh.
and the employees get the freedom they're looking for.
Plus, I imagine there are cost savings for companies too, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like less need for office space.
Yeah.
Potentially lower salaries depending on where people are based.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are also some very real concerns from the employer side.
Okay.
Like, for example, tax and regulatory issues can get really complicated when you have employees
Oh, I bet.
working in different countries.
Yeah.
There are even like specialized lawyers
Wow.
like Adam Brewer who help companies figure all that out.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a headache
Yeah, it can be.
for some companies.
It can.
What other concerns have you heard from employers?
Well, some companies like Oak Theory,
Okay.
they're a design firm in New York.
Mm-hmm.
They've brought up the difficulties of coordinating meetings
Right.
across multiple time zones.
Yeah.
And then there's the worry about keeping a strong company culture, you know, and making sure teams stay connected
Yeah.
when everyone's scattered around the globe.
Right. So it sounds like companies are trying to find that sweet spot.
They are.
Attracting and retaining the best people
Yeah.
while also making sure
Yeah.
everything runs smoothly, legally, and productively.
Exactly.
It's a balancing act
Yeah.
for sure.
It is.
And it's not just about logistics either.
No, it's not.
You know, diversity, equity, and inclusion
Right.
become even more critical
Yeah.
when you have a remote or global team.
Absolutely.
Everyone needs to feel valued and respected,
Right.
regardless of their location,
Yeah.
their background, or who they are.
It's so important.
It is.
Yeah. And that actually is a good segue into something else we've been looking at.
Oh, okay.
Which is like the perspective of people actually living this digital nomad life.
Okay. I'm all ears.
Yeah, so we found this really interesting perspective from Nathan Thomas.
Okay.
He's a digital nomad himself.
Okay.
And he's an editor and author of the book Untethered,
Okay.
Living the Digital Nomad Life in an Uncertain World. And he argues that location has become
Yeah.
basically irrelevant in today's work world.
So he's saying it doesn't really matter where you work from as long as you deliver good work.
Exactly.
Okay.
His point is that clients care most about getting quality work, good communication, and knowing that you're available when they need you.
Yeah.
Where you physically are when you do all that is secondary.
That's a pretty powerful statement
It is.
about how technology is really breaking down these geographical barriers.
Totally.
It's less about being in the office and more about showing you're capable
Right.
and getting the job done no matter where you are.
Exactly. And this whole idea of untethering, as Thomas calls it,
Yeah.
has big implications for the future of work.
Okay.
So he predicts that more and more American knowledge workers are going to move to places with a lower cost of living,
Right.
like Colombia or Thailand.
Okay.
And companies are going to start hiring globally, bringing in people from, Mexico, Spain, Poland, you name it.
So the world is becoming one giant talent pool.
It seems like it.
Companies can hire the best regardless of location,
Yeah.
and people have the freedom to live and work wherever they want.
Exactly. It's an exciting possibility.
It is.
And it makes you think about like how salaries might change too.
Oh, okay.
Thomas believes that wages might eventually be based more on the value you bring
Okay.
rather than where you happen to live.
That would be a huge shift.
It would.
I mean, imagine like copywriters in New Zealand
Yeah.
competing with those in San Francisco,
Totally.
or designers in Nigeria
Right.
going after the same projects
Yeah.
as big agencies in London.
It's a fascinating and maybe a little disruptive
Yeah.
future to consider. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves here.
Okay.
We still have some big hurdles to overcome before we get to that truly global and equal workforce.
Right. Like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Employers have some valid concerns.
They do.
About the legal and logistical stuff.
Right.
When you have people working all over the world.
Exactly, like these international tax laws.
Yeah.
And the challenges of, having meetings across different time zones.
Mm-hmm. What other concerns are employers raising?
Well, one of the biggest worries we've seen is the potential impact on company culture.
Okay.
And how to keep teams connected when everyone's remote.
Right.
When you're not physically together, it can be harder to build those relationships and that sense of shared purpose.
I get that. Yeah. It's easier to build camaraderie.
Right.
When you're seeing your colleagues every day, grabbing lunch or coffee together.
Right.
So how are companies tackling this challenge?
Well, a lot of them are getting creative with virtual team building activities, online social events, and even like occasional in-person retreats.
Oh, wow.
To bring their remote teams together.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's all about finding ways to connect beyond just the day-to-day work stuff.
So it's not just about providing the tools for remote work,
right?
But also about making people feel like they belong, even when they're physically apart.
Exactly. It takes, a conscious effort from both the company and the employees to stay connected and engaged.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And, another challenge that often gets overlooked is the potential for burnout.
Oh, yeah.
When you're working remotely.
Big time.
It's easy to feel like you're always on.
Right.
When the lines between work and life get blurry.
Absolutely. When your office is your laptop.
Right.
It's tempting to check emails or work on projects at any hour.
Oh, yeah.
It can be a real struggle to maintain that work-life balance.
I can definitely see that happening. So what can people do to prevent that?
Well, I think setting clear boundaries and expectations around work hours is crucial.
Yeah.
Just because you can work from anywhere doesn't mean you should be working all the time.
Right.
And companies need to be respectful of their employees' personal time.
For sure.
And not expect them to be available 24/7 just because they're remote.
So it's about giving people the freedom to work from anywhere.
Right.
But also empowering them to create healthy boundaries and protect their well-being.
Exactly. It's about making sure remote work is sustainable for both the individual and the company.
It sounds like we're still figuring this whole remote work thing out.
I think we are.
There's a lot to learn and adapt to on both sides.
On both sides.
Speaking of the future, what are some of the emerging trends or predictions you've come across when it comes to remote work and digital nomadism?
Well, one of the most interesting predictions is the rise of hybrid work models where people split their times between working in the office and working remotely.
Interesting.
It's like trying to get the best of both worlds, that flexibility, but also some level of face-to-face interaction.
Yeah, it sounds like a good compromise.
It does.
Acknowledging that people need both autonomy and connection.
For sure.
So.
And we're seeing more and more companies experimenting with these different hybrid models.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Another trend I've been hearing about is the growing importance of digital skills.
Oh, yeah.
With more jobs going remote or hybrid, people need to be really good at using digital tools and platforms.
They do.
For things like communication and collaboration.
Right.
And project management.
Absolutely. Digital skills are essential in today's world.
Yeah.
And this applies to, everyone.
Right. From entry-level employees to CEOs.
So it's not just knowing how to use a certain software.
Right.
But having a deeper understanding of how to communicate online.
Right.
How to stay safe online.
Right.
And how to work effectively in a virtual environment.
Exactly.
And since technology keeps changing so rapidly.
Yeah, it does.
It's important to stay curious. Keep learning and adapt.
You bet.
Otherwise, it's easy to fall behind.
Yeah, for sure.
This brings up an interesting question.
Okay.
As the world becomes more digital and interconnected, do you think geographical boundaries will eventually just disappear when it comes to job opportunities and career growth?
That's a question a lot of experts are debating.
Right.
There are definitely signs pointing in that direction, like the rise of global talent pools, and the focus on skills over location. But there are still, some big obstacles like international regulations, visa issues, and cultural differences.
Yeah.
It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
For sure.
But one thing is for sure.
Okay.
The way we work is changing dramatically.
Yeah.
And it's going to have a ripple effect on everything. From where we live to how we balance our work with everything else in our life.
It's an exciting and maybe a little overwhelming time.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
We need to be willing to embrace change, adapt, and constantly learn.
Absolutely.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the rise of remote work and digital nomadism to the challenges and opportunities that come with it.
For sure.
We've heard from people living the digital nomad life.
Right.
We've explored different perspectives. And we even talked about what the future of work might hold.
That's right.
We've looked at the impact on both individuals and companies, considering things like lifestyle choices, global talent pools, and the evolving nature of the workplace.
It's a lot.
But before we wrap things up, let's take a moment to think about something we haven't directly addressed.
Okay.
The environmental impact.
Oh, that's a good one.
Of this new way of working.
Right.
It feels like a bit of a paradox.
It does.
Remote work could be good for the planet in some ways, but maybe not so much in others.
Right.
Yeah, it really is fascinating to think about all these different angles.
It is.
Before we shift gears, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on those potential environmental impacts we just touched on.
Yeah.
It feels like a bit of a paradox.
It does.
Remote work could be good for the planet in some ways.
Right.
But maybe not so much in others.
It's definitely a mixed bag.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you have fewer people commuting, which, reduces carbon emissions.
Yeah.
And companies may need less office space, which could lower energy consumption overall.
Right.
But then you have the potential increase in home energy use as people work from home more. Right. And let's not forget about digital nomads who often travel quite a bit.
Yeah.
That frequent travel can have a significant environmental footprint.
It's like we need to find ways to make remote work more sustainable.
Yeah.
Maybe companies could incentivize employees to use renewable energy at home or choose more eco-friendly travel options.
Absolutely. And individuals can make conscious choices too, like being mindful of their energy consumption, minimizing unnecessary travel.
Right.
And supporting companies that prioritize sustainability.
For sure.
It's a collective effort.
Yeah.
For sure.
So as we wrap up our conversation about this new world of work, what are some key takeaways you'd like our listener to remember?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that the traditional way of working is changing. Yeah. And it's changing fast. It is.
Remote work and digital nomadism are not just passing fads.
Right.
They're fundamentally changing how we think about work.
Yeah.
Where we do it, and how we balance it with the rest of our lives.
It sounds like there's no going back to the old way of doing things.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
This shift brings both amazing opportunities and some serious challenges.
Yeah.
For individuals, it's about embracing flexibility.
Oh, okay.
Getting really good at using digital tools.
Right.
And prioritizing their well-being.
Yeah.
In a world where work can happen anywhere, anytime.
Right.
And for companies, it's about adapting to this new reality.
Yeah.
Finding creative ways to manage and support remote teams and building a company culture that values both productivity and the well-being of their employees.
We've seen how remote work can give companies access to a global pool of talent, potentially save them money.
And give employees more freedom and control over their work-life balance.
You can.
But we've also talked about the potential downsides.
Right.
Things like navigating complicated international tax laws, maintaining a strong company culture with a distributed workforce, and making sure diversity, equity, and inclusion are a priority in a globalized work environment.
Absolutely. It's a balancing act.
It is.
What works for one company or person might not work for another.
Right.
It's about finding what fits. Being willing to adjust to changing circumstances and never stopping learning and growing.
And maybe most importantly, We need to approach this new world of work.
Yeah.
Thoughtfully and responsibly.
Absolutely.
We can't just think about the economic implications.
Right.
We have to consider the social and environmental impacts of the choices we make.
Well said. As we move forward, like it's important to keep having these open and honest conversations about the future of work.
For sure.
We need to face the challenges head on, get excited about the opportunities and work together to create a more equitable, sustainable, and fulfilling work experience for everyone.
This has been such an eye-opening discussion.
Yes.
I hope our listeners feeling informed, inspired, and maybe even a little challenged to rethink their own assumptions about work and what the future holds.
I agree. The future of work is what we make it.
That's a good point.
By being thoughtful, embracing innovation, and prioritizing the well-being of both people and the planet, we can create a future where work is more than just a way to make a living. It can be a source of purpose, fulfillment, and positive change.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
I agree.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you. To our listener, we hope this deep dive has given you something to think about.
Yeah.
And maybe even spark some new ideas about your own work life and career path.
That would be great.
Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep that sense of possibility alive.
Absolutely.